His Excellency President El-Sisi and the ministers who are here from Egypt, on behalf of our delegation, we thank you for inviting us to have this dialogue. I have not been here for a long time. I was here when we had a conference in Sharm el-Sheikh. This was some time ago. First of all, Misiri. Misiri in our language means many gardens. So whenever we read it, we say, oh, these are talking about gardens. If it's one garden, it is Musiri, Musiri. If there are many, Misiri. This is our language. Uganda and the Great Lakes are linked to Egypt by the Nile from ancient time immemorial. Politically, we started getting close to Egypt after 1952, when NASA took leadership in Egypt. Before that, we didn't have much political contact with Egypt. But NASA was a Pan-Africanist, the Pan-Africanist orientation. So he worked with our leaders. He worked with Julius Nyerere, with Kwame Nkrumah, with Modibo Keita, with many. And Egypt, under NASA, supported the anti-colonial movement in Southern Africa, including Uganda. Even the Uganda National Congress, one of our parties, had an office here in Cairo. There was an Egyptian minister, Mohammed Fayek, who was in charge of those efforts. Now, when we came into government, I started working with the leaders, Field Marshal Mubarak, Boutros Ghali, and we were discussing these issues. On the issue of the Nile, what I've discussed with His Excellency was that we should have, maybe the problem has been the approach. Because the approach from Egypt has been our historical rights. The agreements you had with the British, 19, that, 19. And then, so then the other people say, but how about us? How about us? But if we broaden the discussion, that's what I was advising His Excellency. And I'm glad he has listened, and I will talk to the others. I was saying the global needs of all the Nile countries are for prosperity for all, number one. But within the prosperity, we need electricity for all. We need irrigation for all. And we need, of course, water for drinking. So if we put this in the documents, instead of the other approach of we and them, then we shall see for the most scientific ways of how this can be done. And from what I was discussing with some of the ministers, I think the problem is not as big as it looks. It could be the approach. It could be the approach. Now, the prosperity will also come from business. Egypt has got a big advantage. You are on the Mediterranean. And Uganda is linked with Egypt by the Nile. Now people say Uganda is landlocked. But Uganda is not landlocked. At one time I was saying that Uganda is Bashir-locked. Uganda is not landlocked. We have got a waterway to the Mediterranean. You can come by water and by rail from Uganda up to Alexandria, because there is the Nile. And Nile is navigable most of the way. During the time of the British, we would go by boat from Uganda to Alexandria. But the political problems in the Sudan are the ones which blocked the route. So we are not landlocked. We are at one time I was saying Bashir locked, but now I don't know who is blocking us. Burhan and Hemeti. If there was no political conflict in Sudan, we could have a water rail link from Uganda to Alexandria, because the Nile is navigable most of the way. So I'm very happy to discuss with His Excellency. I will also discuss with the other leaders about the Nile. But bilaterally, we have got a very good relationship with Egypt under His Excellency. They supported us with the foot and mouth disease vaccines for the cow. And His Excellency has agreed to build a factory in Uganda for foot and mouth vaccine. I'm very happy with that. But generally speaking, as I will emphasize at the business center, business is about two things: producing a good or a service and somebody buying it. If you get leaders who don't see that, who don't see how it produce goods and services and how to market them, you will never get prosperity, because there's no other way. If I buy what you produce, I support you. My pocket is supporting your prosperity. If you buy what I produce, you are supporting me. This is what the leaders need to understand in the whole of Africa. There is no other way we shall get prosperity without producing goods and services in the most economic way and selling them, and vice versa. So therefore, I'm glad that His Excellency is emphasizing business. Business. That means that we are going to look at how to invest together in production, but also market together between the two countries and within Africa, and also with the third countries. That's how we are going to get out of poverty. When there is a production of goods and services, and you sell, you create jobs, you employ people, you pay for electricity, you pay taxes. That's how prosperity comes. How will prosperity come if we are doing nothing, we are not trading? We are not producing, we are not trading. Where will prosperity come from? In the past, there has been a mistake of some of the African countries concentrating on trading with Europe and America. But the problem with that one is that, as you can see, it's risky, because they can change and say, block you. If they block you, then what do you do? That's why we say, but you have got your own market. Why don't you develop it? There are 100 million people in Egypt. I want them to buy my products. There are 50 million people in Uganda. There will be 100 million very soon because the women are producing a lot of children. The population of Africa is very huge. The whole population of Africa now is 1.5 billion. We have surpassed China, we have surpassed India. And we shall be 2.5 billion in the next 30, 20, 25 years. So the potential is there. So I'm very glad that His Excellency, President Sisi, sees this business angle very, very clearly, from both the production side and the market consumption side. So I'm very happy to be here, and I'm glad he invited us. We have had a very good dialogue, even on these problems of Libya, of Sudan, of Palestine. We have discussed all that. I thank you and wish you good luck.
Within the framework of fostering regional integration and cooperation among Nile Basin states with a view of strengthening fraternity ties and boosting efforts of instilling stability, security and development among African brothers, the visit by His Excellency President Yoweri Museveni to Egypt comes to mark the reinforcement of the necessity of developing bilateral collaboration between the two states and to vest the entire available opportunities for the sake of furthering promotion of economic relationships and trade exchange in the interest of the two populations. Hence, we now witness signing number of memorandum of understanding between the two states.
Of the historical relations between both our countries and brotherly nations that are linked to the river Nile, and they have long decades of solidarity and cooperation in different fields. Ladies and gentlemen, the bilateral Ugandan relations have witnessed a great development recently that reflects the close interests between both countries. And I emphasized during our talks today with His Excellency President Museveni, Egypt's keenness on upgrading relations with Uganda to new horizons, and the fact that we are looking forward to this visit and that it would be a new starting point towards a real partnership between the two countries. Today we've witnessed signing a number of memos of understanding in the field of technical cooperation, management of water resources, agricultural and food cooperation, as well as investment and mutual exemption of visas for those who have official passports, and in the field of diplomatic cooperation to support establishing a diplomatic Institute for Uganda. And we discussed also today ways to enforce economic cooperation and to extend trade exchange between the two countries. We agreed on accelerating forming a joint business council, as well as encouraging visits between the business communities in both countries to achieve mutual interests. And in this context, the joint business forum would be held at the sidelines of this visit to get to know the investment opportunities in the two countries, as well as taking executive measures in this context. We discussed also opportunities for cooperation in the field of training, capacity building, and we emphasized our keenness on moving forward with cooperation in the field of dealing with veterinary diseases, in addition to cooperation in the field of energy and insecurity. We intend to continue our cooperation due to the last visit for the head of the popular Ugandan commander, and we agreed on holding annually the military council's meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, I shared with President Museveni visions regarding the River Nile, the channel of life for both our countries, and we agreed that the optimum way to deal between the Nile Valley countries should be built on enhancing cooperation to achieve common interest, as well as joint action to protect this vital resource and develop it, as well as taking into consideration the interest of everyone and not to harm anyone according to international law standards. As mentioned by His Excellency President Museveni, with his great wisdom, without protecting the environment of the Nile Basin, we will have nothing to share. Accordingly, I confirmed to President Museveni our full support to the efforts of development in Uganda and the rest of the brotherly countries in the Nile Basin, and the fact that we are ready to contribute to financing Ongululu Dam between Uganda and Kenya through the mechanism launched by Egypt to invest in infrastructure projects in the Nile Basin with a preliminary investment of $100 million. And I would like to announce that we signed today a memorandum of understanding in the field of integrated water resources management to build on the extended cooperation for over 20 years between the two countries to protect the environment of the River Nile and to develop its resources with a total value of $6 million to emphasize our strong commitment to supporting development in Uganda and the rest of the Nile Basin countries. In this context, I confirmed our confidence in the constructive role played by Uganda to lead the consultation regarding the Nile Basin Initiative to achieve agreement and conformity between the Nile Basin countries for mutual interest. And I heightened the fact that Egypt is against unilateral actions in the Eastern Nile Basin that should be a source for development rather than conflict. And he would be distracted if he thinks that Egypt is going to turn a blind eye to its interests. And we will take all the legal standards and all the legal rules at the international level according to the international law to protect our interests. And let me stop here, because this was a lengthy discussion between me and President Museveni due to his wisdom and his long experience, and also due to the importance of this issue we're tackling. In fact, we agreed both that water is a very important issue and development is important as well, and our stance was clear from the beginning. We said that we would never be against the development of our partners and our brothers in the Nile Basin countries. We have no problem with that. We have only one problem, that this development we are talking about should not have a negative impact on the share of water that reaches Egypt. And the discussion that we had with the president, and I found that he fully understood this view. The president told me that we or you, or should we all be together? I told him, we all together, of course. We are all together. So I told him, then there is no difference between us. He told me, I want to tell you that the volume of water that falls on the Nile Basin, be it the White Nile or the Blue Nile, according to the scientific standards, say that 1,600 cubic meters of water fall annually on the two Niles. And this is the part of water that goes to the forests, the swamps, the ponds, part used for agriculture, parts evaporates, and parts go to underground water, and very small volume goes to the White and Blue Niles, which is about the 85 million cubic meters we're talking about. So if we say that these 1,600 and the 85, then the 85 is only 4% of this volume of water we're talking about. What does this mean? When I ask for this water and this volume of water to reach Egypt and Sudan so that we can survive because we do not have any other water resource, by saying so, am I against development in the Nile Basin countries, or am I against them benefiting from this water for agriculture or electricity generation? No, of course, and I'm emphasizing this here in front of His Excellency the President and you all. I'm telling the Egyptians that our stance from the beginning was that we said that we are not against development. We did not even talk about share division of this water, because if we talk about fair division, that we're talking about 1,600 million cubic meters. We're talking about only 4 or 5% of the 1,600 billion cubic meters of water that we're talking about. So this is so important. We are not saying we or them, Egypt or Sudan only. We are saying we all together. We should all together survive, cooperate for the welfare and the development of our countries. That's why I'm confirming again that this matter of water is so important for Egypt, because we do not have any other source. And the President told me, do you know what's the meaning of Egypt in our language? I asked him, what does it mean? He said, it means the garden. Okay. This garden is a garden because of the water we receive from the River Nile. We do not have rainfall. So this is the share that we receive. So no one can think that we would give up upon it, because if we do so, we're giving up our life, and this would never happen. I just wanted to mention this point. And the volume of understanding that I found was great, and we depend on the 7 parties committee to enable us to reach an agreement for the benefit of everyone and for further cooperation between the Nile Basin countries, because there were other countries that had similar problems and they were able to reach an agreement for everyone, and we want to do the same. I would just like to say, Your Excellency the President, he who has rainfall does not feel for he who does not have water. In Egypt, we do not have rain, and the Egyptians are so worried and so cautious about water. And I would like to tell the Egyptians that I totally understand this, and I'm responsible along with the leaders, my brothers, like President Museveni, to find a solution that does not impact the lives of Egyptians. Egypt is under a lot of pressure in this aspect, and maybe water is one of this pressure campaign to achieve other purposes, and we fully realize this, and we are trying as much as we can to deal with that. And I'm emphasizing here before the President that we are against intervention in the internal affairs of others. We are against conspiracies against others. We are against construction, and we are for construction and are against destruction. And we have very long years for cooperating with the countries. Once more, I would like to reassure the Egyptians that this matter would be settled, and we would never allow harming the water that is needed by 105 million Egyptians and 10 million guests. Here, I would like to reiterate the importance of the Egyptian awareness, and this is the main pillar that I depend on in facing any challenge or any imminent threat. I do not want to be lengthy. I would just like to say at the end, I thank you all, and I thank the President once more, and I would like to welcome him to Egypt.
Ugandan Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
مذكرة تفاهم بشأن دعم مكتب رئيس الوزراء الأوغندي منطقة لويرو في تعزيز سبل العيش من خلال المياه من أجل الإنتاج وتصنيع الفاكهة والتسويق. السيد علاء الدين فاروق وزير الزراعة واستصلاح
For the enforcement of livelihoods from water for production, food processing and improvement of households' income for the interest of civil veterans between Ministry of Agriculture and Land Reclamation.
مذكرة تفاهم بشأن تعزيز العلاقات الاستثمارية الثنائية بين الهيئة العامة للاستثمار والمناطق الحرة